Don't ever stop for anyone on the old stretch of Route 66, the veteran drivers always said. Not for women, not for kids, not even for God himself if he's thumbing a ride. Travis Mitchell used to laugh when he heard that. Not anymore. It was October 19th. A dry wind dragged dust across the Arizona asphalt like dead leaves scraping pavement. The moon was a blood-orange sliver behind thin clouds. Travis had been hauling freight for 12 hours straight, his eyelids heavy, his radio fizzing with static between country twang and Christian talk. He was somewhere between Kingman and Seligman, a forgotten stretch of the old Route 66. No rest stops, no gas stations, no cell signal, just darkness and road. That's when he saw her. At first she looked like a mirage, a blur in his headlights, barely distinguishable from the shimmer of heat rising off the blacktop. But as he approached, the shape sharpened into a young woman, mid-20s maybe, wearing a pale blue sundress and holding one hand at her side. Her other hand was raised, thumb out, like she'd been standing there a long time. Something about her stopped his breath. She wasn't panicked, wasn't crying, just waiting. He pulled over. The hiss of air brakes sliced the silence. She didn't move. Travis leaned across the passenger seat and opened the door. Need a lift? She nodded, her eyes shadowed under the glow of the dome light. Wordless, she climbed up into the cab and gently closed the door. They drove in silence. For a while, her hands were folded neatly in her lap. The dress she wore was old-fashioned, something out of a 60s postcard. Her hair was long and dark, almost too perfect. Not a strand out of place. She didn't look at him, just stared ahead. You from around here? He asked, his voice louder than intended in the cramped cabin. She blinked slowly. My car broke. Down. I just need to get to Seligman, he nodded. Seligman's a long way from here on foot. You're lucky I came through. She didn't respond. He cleared his throat. You been out there long? Her voice was soft. Feels like forever. That's when he noticed the scent. Not unpleasant, but strange, sweet, powdery, faintly floral, like an old bottle of perfume, opened after decades sealed shut. The air in the cab had turned cool, and he adjusted the heater dial. She didn't react. 10 minutes later, he glanced over again. She was gone. Gone. The seat was empty. No door opening. No footsteps, no sound, just a faint indentation where she'd sat, and that haunting scent still floating like mist in the air. Travis slammed the brakes and veered to the shoulder. He stumbled out of the cab, flashlight clutched in shaking, hands sweeping the beam in every direction. Nothing but sand and sagebrush, miss, he called, voice cracking. Where the hell? The desert swallowed his words. He drove the rest of the way in a daze, barely blinking. He reached Seligman just before sunrise and pulled into a diner with peeling paint and a flickering neon. Sign that buzzed like a dying wasp. He staggered inside and ordered coffee, hands trembling around the chipped mug. He asked the waitress if anyone had been reported missing. She looked at him, then quietly walked into the back. When she returned, she carried a laminated news clipping, yellowed with age. You're not the first, she said. The headline read, Tragedy on Route 66. Local woman killed in 1978 crash. The black and white photo showed the same face he'd seen in his cab, a girl in a blue sundress smiling in front of an old convertible. She'd been thrown from the car when her fiancé fell asleep at the wheel. Died instantly. The car burned. The accident happened on the very same stretch of highway where Travis had picked her up. Truckers still whisper about her. The girl who appears on lonely nights, the scent of roses lingering in the air, always wearing that same pale dress, always asking for a ride to Seligman, and always disappearing before the next bend in the road. Travis doesn't talk about it much anymore, but he avoids Route 66, and sometimes, when he's parked under the stars, engine off and crickets chirping, he swears he can smell that. Perfume sweet, old, lingering in the cab like someone is sitting right beside him, watching, waiting, wanting to go home. Travis didn't sleep much after the encounter. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her, those dark, unreadable eyes staring forward, like she wasn't looking at the road, but at something beyond it. He told himself it had been exhaustion, a hallucination. Maybe the desert heat playing tricks on his mind. But then the call came. It was a week later. Travis was parked at a truck stop off I-40, finishing up a delivery manifest when his buddy Ray called. "You remember Leo? That new guy from Phoenix?" "Yeah, I met him last month," Travis replied. "Quiet guy. What about him?" "He's missing." Travis sat up straighter. "What do you mean, missing?" Ray's voice dropped. "Last anyone saw, he was hauling a light load down Route 66. His truck was found outside of Peach Springs. Door open, engine still running." Travis's stomach turned. "Let me guess," he said, voice low. "No sign of him?" Ray was quiet for a beat too long. "There was one thing," he finally said. "The cab smelled like perfume." Travis knew he should let it go. People disappeared all the time. Long hauls, longer stretches of empty land. Anything could happen out there. But the memory wouldn't leave him. That smell, that girl, the silence. So he went back. He waited until nightfall. Travis drove the same route, rolling past familiar signs, now worn and bleached by sun and time. The same warped asphalt, the same rusted fences, the same cold stretch of nothing. When his odometer passed mile marker 234, the air changed. The engine began to hum strangely, a pitch that buzzed in his skull more than his ears. His radio, usually silent, began to flicker between stations. Soft music, a woman singing old warbled like a record spinning too slow. Then he saw her, same dress, same hair, same place. This time Travis didn't stop. But the next time he checked his mirror, she was in the cab, sitting silently in the passenger seat. Her face was pale. Her eyes met his. "You didn't stop," she said softly. His heart thundered in. His chest. He slammed the brakes and skidded to a halt, the rig hissing to a stop on the shoulder. He turned to look at her, but she was gone again. No scent, no sound, just the whisper of the desert wind. The next morning, Travis went to the Mojave County Records Office. He'd memorized the newspaper clipping. 1978. Woman in a crash. Seligman. The clerk, a hunched woman in thick glasses, pulled the records without much fuss. "You looking into that ghost girl?" she asked dryly. "You truckers always are." Travis swallowed. "Yeah," she handed him a file. "Angela May Redding. 23 years old, car accident, died instantly." "Did she have family?" The clerk gave a nod. "Lived with her sister up in Flagstaff for a while. Parents were long gone. Fiancé died 2 years later. Drank himself to death." There was a photo in the file, one Travis hadn't seen. Angela standing in front of a chapel, eyes not quite smiling. Someone had scrawled in red ink across the top, "She never made it home." That night, Travis returned to his motel outside of Seligman. He double-locked the door, drew the curtains, but sometime around 3 a.m. he woke with a start. The room was ice-cold, and the scent was back. Faint, sweet, powdery. A soft knock tapped on the window. 3 times. Travis rose slowly, pulled back the curtain. There was no one there. But across the fogged glass, a single word had been written from the outside. Home. Travis hadn't planned on staying in Arizona. He had freight routes booked across the Midwest for the next 2 weeks. But after what happened at the motel, the knock, the word on the glass, there was no going back to normal. Not until he got answers. And that meant finding Angela's sister. She lived in Flagstaff, just off Route 180, in a neighborhood of creaking pine trees and rust-red roofs. Travis pulled into the cracked driveway of a small white house with green shutters that looked like it hadn't seen a coat of paint in decades. A wooden plaque near the door read, "M. Redding." He knocked. No answer. He was about to leave when the door creaked open. A thin woman in her 60s stood in the doorway, holding a teacup in one trembling hand. Her silver hair was pulled into a bun, and her eyes were sunken but sharp. "You're here about Angela," she said. Not a question. Travis nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am, my name's Travis Mitchell. He hesitated. "I picked her up." She invited him in without a word. The house was old, but clean. The walls were covered in sepia-toned photographs. There were 3 of Angela, one in a graduation cap, one at a piano, and the third in that same blue dress. "I've spoken to others like you," Monsieur Redding said, settling into an armchair. Drivers, police, even a priest once, always the same story. She gets in, she doesn't speak, then she vanishes. Travis leaned forward. Why? What does she want? The woman sipped her tea. To go home. She was supposed to be married. She continued, her voice shaking slightly. It was a small ceremony, just family, but she never made it. They said the crash was instant. Her fiancé survived, but he wasn't the same. Travis nodded. I read the reports. M. Redding looked out the window. I've tried everything to help her pass on. Prayers, candles, blessings from 3 different churches. She leaned in closer. None of it worked. Because Angela doesn't want peace. She wants something else. Monsieur Redding left the room and returned with a leather-bound journal. Angela's diary. I found this a year after she died, hidden behind her dresser. Travis opened the first few pages. Dates, routine entries, practice sessions, arguments with her fiancé, wedding plans. Then the handwriting shifted, became loopy, disjointed. I dreamed the road again. The sand, the black sky, the truck lights. He sees me. I smile. I get in. It feels like I've done this before. Why do I keep waking up in the desert? There's something wrong with the mirror. I saw my face change. He crashed the car. I saw it. Before it happened. I felt it. I died before I died. Travis stopped reading. Angela had seen her own death before it happened. Angela used to say she had dreams that came true, Monsieur Redding said quietly. She thought it was a gift. Maybe it was something else. Travis closed the journal. Your sister isn't just a ghost, he said. She's stuck in some kind of loop, a moment she can't escape. She's trying to finish something, Monsieur Redding whispered. He turned to her. Do you have anything of hers? Something important? The woman got up and returned moments later with a locket, tarnished silver, inside a faded photo of a young Angela and her fiancé smiling by a lake. She wore this every day. She said. Travis took it and held it tight. If I drive the route again, if she appears, I'll give this to her. Maybe that'll help her move on. M. Redding looked at him with tired, frightened eyes. Or maybe it'll wake up something worse. Travis checked into a roadside motel again. He placed the locket on the dashboard of his truck, locked the doors, left the passenger seat empty, and waited. Just before 3 a.m., the scent returned. Powdery. Sweet. He didn't see her appear this time. No roadside stop, no thumb, no sound, just suddenly there. Angela sat in the passenger seat, hands folded, eyes hollow. Did you bring it? She asked. Travis held out the locket. Her hand reached for it, and the lights in the truck blew out. The radio blared static. The windshield cracked down the middle. Every shadow in the cab bent and stretched inward, like something enormous had turned its gaze directly on him. Angela was gone again, but the locket remained in midair, floating, spinning, and then it fell on. The seat beside it, in her handwriting, were 3 words scratched in frost. Not finished yet. The cracked windshield wasn't something Travis could fix by morning. The locket lay on the passenger seat, cold and heavy, its tarnished silver gleaming under the weak motel light. But the message scratched into frost on the dashboard echoed in his mind. Not finished yet. What was Angela trying to finish? What was holding her here, trapped between life and death on that cursed stretch of Route 66? Travis decided to visit the one place that might hold answers, the site of the accident. He drove through the morning haze, his rig rumbling along the empty highway until he reached a twisted wreckage, half buried in dirt and brush, the remnants of a burnt-out convertible, rusting slowly beneath the unforgiving sun. Local legends called it the Whispering Road. Truckers avoided it, claiming the wind carried voices at night, cries of the lost and damned. As Travis stepped out, the desert wind tugged at his jacket, carrying faint whispers he couldn't quite make out. The scent was there again, old perfume, lingering like a warning. Suddenly a voice broke the silence. "Why do you come here?" Travis spun around. An old man emerged from the shadows, face weathered like the desert rocks. "I'm looking for Angela," Travis said. The man nodded slowly. "I'm Eli. I was the sheriff when the accident happened." Eli's eyes darkened. "There's more to that night than you know. The crash wasn't an accident. Eli explained how Angela's fiancé wasn't just a grieving man. He was desperate, angry, and broken by secrets that went deeper than anyone realized. Before the crash, there were rumors. Something about a debt to dark forces. Travis frowned. Dark forces? Eli lowered his voice. Some say the fiancé made a deal to save his failing business, but the price was steep. Angela got caught in the crossfire, a soul trapped between worlds. She's been searching for peace ever since, Eli said, but the curse binds her to this road. That night, Travis returned to his truck. He wore the locket, feeling its cold weight against his chest. As the clock struck 3 a.m., the air grew thick with silence. The passenger door creaked open. Angela appeared, pale and fragile. "I need your help," she whispered. Together they drove the haunted stretch of Route 66. The road twisted and shimmered, the desert turning into shadows and memories. Suddenly a dark shape loomed ahead, an unholy force, eyes glowing like embers, blocking the road. The entity spoke in a voice like gravel and ice. "You cannot pass. The debt is unpaid." Travis gripped the steering wheel. Angela stepped forward, clutching the locket. "I am ready," she said. With a scream that pierced the night, Angela reached out to the dark entity. Light exploded from the locket, enveloping them both. The road shook. The wind roared. When the light faded, Angela was gone. The dark shape dissolved into the night air. Travis sat alone, heart pounding, tears streaming down his face. Travis never saw Angela again, but the scent, the perfume, never returned. Some nights, when the desert wind whispers through the rig's cabin, he smiles, knowing she's finally free. The desert morning was unusually still. Travis sat in his truck cab, staring out as the first pale light seeped over the horizon, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement of Route 66. The battle of the previous night felt like a distant fever dream. Angela was gone. The dark presence vanquished. The locket, now cold and silent on the dashboard, seemed like the last tangible link to everything he'd experienced. For the first time in months, the road felt quiet. Free. Travis pushed the rig forward, rolling along, the highway beneath a cloudless sky. The sun climbed higher, baking the earth, but the silence in his heart was heavier than the heat. No phantom hitchhiker appeared, no perfume, no shadows lurking just beyond the headlights, just empty roads stretching to the horizon. He breathed in, the dry air, daring to hope this nightmare was finally over. 2 days later, Travis pulled off at a small diner in Kingman, a dusty town with cracked sidewalks and neon signs buzzing faintly in the midday sun. Inside, the air smelled of stale coffee and frying grease. Locals sat hunched over chipped mugs, murmuring quietly. Travis slid into a booth and ordered black coffee, his thoughts miles away. As he stirred cream into the bitter brew, his eyes caught a faded, hand-painted sign on the wall behind the counter. "V. Lost ones keep watching," he chuckled uneasily. The town's folklore ran as deep as the desert sand. Before he could take another sip, a waitress approached, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes and a voice barely above a whisper. "You're the trucker who helped Angela, aren't you?" Travis blinked, surprised by how calm her words sounded. "How do you know?" She shrugged, a haunted look crossing her face. "Everyone's heard the story. You freed her." Travis nodded slowly. "She's free now," the waitress continued. "But don't think it's over. Route 66 is full of them. Lost souls, hitchhikers who never made it. They wait for someone to stop, but they don't want to be saved." Travis felt a chill crawl up his spine. "What do you mean?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "They watch, they wait, and some of them aren't friendly." That night, Travis lay awake in his motel bed, replaying her words. The scent of old perfume was gone. No ghostly figure haunted his cab, but the air held a new weight, cold and heavy, pressing on his chest like a hand from the darkness. He reached for his water bottle, but paused. Outside, the sound of a truck idling broke the silence. Heart pounding, Travis rose and peeked through the window blinds. Beneath the flickering glow of a broken streetlight, a lone figure stood by the roadside, thumb outstretched. No car, no headlights, just a silhouette framed by the desert night. Travis's breath caught. He grabbed his keys and jacket, his hands shaking. He didn't know if it was hope or fear driving him as he stepped into the cool night. The desert wind tugged at his jacket as he walked toward the figure. The highway stretched endlessly in both directions, an empty ribbon of black cutting through the land. The figure didn't speak, just waited. Travis took a deep breath. "Need a ride?" he asked. No answer, but the figure moved, stepping closer to the highway, merging with the shadows. Travis paused, his heart hammering. He thought of Angela, freed at last, and of the others, the lost, the forgotten, the restless. The road was far from over. As the first stars blinked awake in the vast sky, Travis climbed back into his truck, the engine rumbling to life. The highway was calling again, and he was ready. The desert night pressed close, the vast emptiness swallowing Travis's rig as he pushed deeper along the winding stretch of Route 66. The stars above glittered cold and distant, but inside the cab, a growing chill crept in, coiling around his spine like icy fingers. He glanced to his right and froze. There, sitting silently in the passenger seat, was a figure cloaked in shadow. No face, no eyes. Just a silhouette carved from darkness itself, its presence oppressive, as if the night had taken form and whispered secrets. Only Travis could hear. The air inside the truck grew heavy. The radio flickered, sputtered, then fell dead silent. The engine's rumble seemed to fade, replaced by a suffocating quiet. Then, from the darkness, a voice came, low, rasping, scraping like wind over dry gravel. "You freed the girl," it said, voice like a graveyard whisper. "But you have no idea what you've unleashed." Travis's grip tightened on the wheel, knuckles white. "Who are you?" he demanded, voice barely above a whisper. The shadow leaned closer, its shape swirling like smoke caught in a gust. "I am the rider," it said, "keeper of the curse that binds this road." The rider's story spilled out like venom, dark and ancient. Centuries ago, a desperate man, one with a family to feed and dreams to chase, made a pact with a shadowy force that promised fortune beyond measure. But the price was his soul, and the curse was born. That curse twisted into the highway, a malignant force feeding on death, pain, and despair. Every ghost, every phantom hitchhiker trapped on Route 66 was a soul claimed by the rider, caught in a cycle of suffering and endless wandering. Angela was lucky to be freed, but freeing her, the rider hissed, has only awakened the hunger. The curse grows stronger, and now it thirsts for more. Travis's heart hammered. "You won't take me." The rider's shadow seemed to pulse, black tendrils creeping toward the dashboard. "I take what the road offers. And you, trucker, are a tempting prize." The first blush of dawn painted the desert in blood-red light. The rider's grip on the wheel tightened, cold as death itself. "You can run," it whispered, voice like a death rattle. "Or you can fight." Travis slammed his foot on the accelerator. The rig roared to life, tires screaming against the asphalt, as he tore toward the sun rising over the horizon. Behind him, the rider's shadow screamed. A soundless howl swallowed. By the wind. The rider disappeared into the dark, but Travis knew it was only the beginning. The curse of Route 66 wasn't just a ghost story. It was a living nightmare, and he was caught in its center. But he wasn't giving up, not now, not ever. The relentless sun hammered down on the cracked asphalt of Route 66 as Travis's rig rumbled into Albuquerque. Dust swirled lazily around. Faded storefronts and peeling billboards, relics of a once glorious highway now scarred by stories darker than the desert night. Inside the cab, Travis wiped the sweat from his brow. The nightmare wasn't over. If anything, it had only just begun. Travis, parked near the city's old public library. A grand building with stone pillars worn smooth by time. The air smelled of paper and dust as he stepped inside. Rows upon rows of books stretched into dim corners, promising answers hidden in ink and parchment. For hours, Travis dove into the archives, scanning brittle newspapers, handwritten journals, and local legends. His fingers trembled when he unearthed a yellowed article dated back to 1912, an account of a man named Elias Crow. Elias Crow was a gambler and outlaw, notorious across the Southwest for his ruthless ambition. The article told of his rise to power, built on both cunning and cruelty. But it was the footnote that sent a chill through Travis's spine. Crow was said to have made a deal with a shadow entity to secure his empire, a pact sealed with blood and darkness. Upon his death, whispers say his spirit was bound to the land, cursed to roam the desert highways as a rider of death. The rider, Travis realized, was no mere ghost. He was the physical embodiment of that ancient curse, a dark sentinel of Route 66. Travis knew that facing such a force alone was suicide. He needed an ally, someone who understood the deeper mysteries of the Southwest. He contacted Marisol Ortega, a historian and folklorist renowned for her knowledge of indigenous legends and occult rituals. She was cautious but intrigued by Travis's story. As twilight bled into night, Travis met Marisol at the mission chapel perched on a rocky hill outside the city. The adobe walls glowed faintly under the moonlight, candles flickering in the windows. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of sage and burning wax. Marisol listened intently as Travis recounted every detail. Angela's story, the rider's curse, and the haunting on Route 66. She nodded, her dark eyes reflecting the candle flames. "There are rituals that can bind or banish spirits," she said quietly. "But they're dangerous and demand more than belief. They require sacrifice, strength, and the right place." She pulled from her satchel an ancient obsidian symbol, carved with intricate patterns and worn smooth by time. "This," Marisol said, "can trap the rider if used where his curse is strongest." But the ritual must be precise. Travis felt the weight of what lay ahead. The cursed highway wasn't just haunted by ghosts, it was a battleground for souls. Marisol shared stories of other travelers who vanished, trapped in the rider's grasp. She spoke of how the curse twisted time and space along Route 66, turning the desert into a labyrinth of shadows. But most importantly, she gave Travis hope. That night, Travis sat alone in his rig, the obsidian symbol resting on the dashboard. Outside, the desert stretched endlessly, silent and watchful. He thought of Angela, finally freed, and the countless souls still lost in the darkness. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. The rider was coming, and this time, Travis was ready to fight. The rig's headlights pierced the desert night once more as Travis set off. The curse was ancient and powerful, but so was the will to break it. The battle for Route 66 was far from over. The desert sky burned in streaks of crimson, and gold as the sun began its slow descent beyond the mesas. The air was thick with heat by day, but already turning crisp and sharp as twilight crept across the barren landscape. Travis's rig rumbled along the cracked asphalt of Route 66, the radio silent, the cab filled only with the steady hum of the engine and the pounding of his own heart. Beside him, Marisol sat quietly, her fingers wrapped tightly around the obsidian symbol, a relic heavy with ancient power. Her dark eyes were fixed ahead, calm but resolute. They pulled off the highway near a long-forgotten rest stop, where time seemed to have frozen decades earlier. The gas pumps were rusted and cracked, the station's faded paint peeling under the relentless sun. Scrubby desert bushes clawed their way through the cracked concrete. "This is the heart of it," Marisol said quietly, stepping out and scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. "Where the curse was bound, where Elias Crow made his final stand." The wind stirred, carrying faint echoes of distant whispers. Travis felt a shiver run down his spine. Marisol knelt on the dusty ground, pulling a stick from a nearby bush. She began tracing an intricate circle in the dirt, drawing symbols with sharp, deliberate strokes, ancient sigils and protective marks passed down through generations. Her voice lowered to a chant, slow and hypnotic, the words curling and winding, like smoke. The desert air seemed to pulse with energy, swirling dust and sand devils dancing in the growing shadows. Travis watched, nerves taut, feeling the weight of the moment settle over him. Suddenly the temperature dropped. The shadows deepened unnaturally, swallowing the fading light. From the darkness the rider appeared, a massive figure cloaked in a billowing black coat, face hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat that seemed to drink in the light. Two burning coals blazed where his eyes should have been, glowing with malevolent fire. The air trembled as he spoke, voice like rolling thunder. "You cannot stop what is bound to this land. I am eternal. This curse is my gift, and my prison." Travis gripped the obsidian symbol tightly, feeling a strange warmth pulse through it. Marisol's chant rose in intensity, echoing through the still desert night. The rider's shadowy form lunged forward, tendrils of darkness snaking toward them like hungry serpents. Travis raised the symbol high. A radiant light burst forth, sharp and pure, slicing through the blackness. The darkness recoiled with a hiss, but the rider pressed on, furious and relentless. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the ritual reached its peak. Marisol's voice became a roar, the ancient words filling the night sky. The obsidian carving pulsed brighter and brighter, sending waves of light rippling through the desert. The rider screamed, an unearthly, agonizing sound that tore through the silence like shattered glass. His shadow form twisted and writhed as the light swallowed him, clawing at the edges of the glowing circle. With one last defiant roar, the rider was consumed, fading into nothingness. Silence fell. The desert air grew warm again, the chill lifting with the coming dawn. Marisol lowered the obsidian symbol, breathing heavily. Travis watched as the first golden rays of sunlight kissed the desert floor. No longer did the air carry the faint scent of perfume. No longer did shadows flicker at the edge of his vision. The curse was broken. Travis climbed back, into his truck, heart pounding but steady. He looked ahead to the open road, the highway stretching endlessly into the brightening sky. Angela's restless spirit was finally at peace, and so were the countless souls trapped by the rider's curse. For the first time in a long while, Route 66 felt free. You ever drive through a desert so empty? It feels like the world's already ended. That's when you start seeing things, shadows where there shouldn't be any, whispers when the wind is still. This is one of those nights. I'd been driving trucks through the Nevada desert for nearly a decade, hauling everything from freight to mystery shipments nobody asked questions about. The desert's not just a place, it's a beast. Hot, unforgiving by day, cold and silent at night. And when you're the only rig on the road, with nothing but the glow of the dashboard and the stars overhead, your mind starts to play tricks on you. I was rolling down Highway 95, a stretch so barren it felt like the edges of the world. The sunset was dragging itself behind the horizon, painting the sky in shades of blood orange and bruised purple. The heat was leaving the asphalt, but the desert air was already getting sharp, the kind of cold that bites in silence. My rig was heavy with a load bound for Reno. Nothing special, just pallets of machinery parts, but the night was special enough on its own. The radio was static, my only company the drone of the engine and the echo of my own breathing. Then I saw it. At first I thought it was a trick of the headlights, a mirage or a shadow cast by some long-dead tumbleweed. There, on the edge of the road was a figure, a person walking slow, steady, like they'd been there for hours. But the weird thing, the figure wasn't holding anything. No backpack, no sign they'd been stranded or lost. Just a silhouette, blacker than the shadows around it, moving along the shoulder like it didn't care about the cold creeping into the night. I blinked hard, maybe even cursed under my breath. "Hey," I said, slowing the rig, easing onto the hay shoulder. "Need a ride? You look frozen out here." The figure didn't respond. It didn't even turn, just kept walking. I killed the engine, grabbed my flashlight from the dash, and stepped outside into the biting cold. The desert at night smells, like dust and ozone, sharp and empty. I started walking toward the figure. That's when it happened, like the desert swallowed it whole. Gone, not a trace left, no footsteps in the dirt, no rustle in the brush, nothing. Just the wind whispering past my ears. I stood there, flashlight shaking in my hand, heart hammering in my chest like I'd seen a ghost, and maybe I had. I climbed back in the cab, started the rig, and kept moving. But something had shifted. The night felt different now, like the desert itself was watching me. Like the shadow wasn't just walking beside the road, it was walking with me. I'm not the type to scare easy. I've hauled loads through thunderstorms, blizzards and 18-hour shifts with nothing but bad coffee to keep me awake. But this was something else, and it was just getting started. You ever had that feeling where the whole world just drops away and suddenly it's just you, a fading radio signal, and something else? That's what hit me a few hours after I saw that shadow on the side of Highway 95. I was trucking through the desert, under a sky so black it swallowed every star but a handful. The temperature had plummeted, the cold biting through my jacket and settling deep in my bones. I was trying to shake the weird feeling from earlier, the shadow, the silence, the vanishing act. But the desert doesn't let go that easy. Flicked my CB radio on channel 19, the trucker's lifeline out here, hoping for a friendly voice or some chatter to cut through the eerie quiet. Static filled the cab, a harsh buzzing hiss that made my skin crawl. And then, a voice. Not loud, not clear, just a whisper, barely more than a breath. "Don't stop." The words floated through the static like they were coming from another world. I froze, hand tightening on the mic. "Breaker, this is Big Rig Hank. Who's there? Over." Nothing but static. I flipped the channel, tried to clear the airwaves, but all I got was silence. No other rigs, no other voices. I glanced out the window and there it was again, that dark figure, closer now, standing just at the edge of the shoulder. The desert wind caught the hem of its clothes. If it even had clothes, making a sound like dry leaves scraping stone. "Hey," I shouted, voice cracking. "You need help or what?" No answer. It didn't move, just stood there watching me. A creeping unease settled in my gut. I felt like I'd walked into some kind of trap. Or worse, that I was being watched by something. That wasn't human. I tried calling dispatch on my phone. No signal, no bars, nothing but dead air. I sat back against the seat, the cold seeping in, the radio whispering again through the static. "Don't stop." I wanted to hit the gas, leave this place behind, but the rig refused. The engine sputtered, the headlights dimmed, the desert swallowed sound. The shadow started moving, slow, deliberate, walking alongside the rig. Every time I blinked, it seemed closer. I could feel it just out of the corner of my eye. And then the CB lit up again, static. Then a breathy voice. "You're already stopped." The rig wasn't moving, but I could swear I was rolling backward. The desert night was no longer just empty space. It was alive. Watching. Waiting. I don't know how long I sat there, frozen. The whisper kept repeating, "Don't stop." I knew one thing for sure. This night was far from over. I needed to get off that godforsaken stretch of Highway 95, the kind of place where the desert wraps around you like a cold, unrelenting blanket, and the horizon seems to close in tighter. The further you drive, I'd been driving for hours, that shadow burned into my mind, and the strange voice on Channel 19 haunting every thought. The rig's engine had died once, then sputtered back to life, but the feeling of being watched didn't leave. My eyes were starting to burn from staring at the black ribbon of highway stretching out ahead, and I knew I had to stop. The exit sign appeared like a lifeline. Coyote Creek Rest Area, 1 mile. It glowed bright in the darkness, almost too bright. I breathed a sigh of relief and slowed down, thinking at last I'd find a place to stretch my legs, grab some coffee, maybe use the bathroom. But as I rolled up, everything felt off. There were no other rigs or cars, no glowing neon signs, no people, just a parking lot empty except for a single flickering light post that buzzed overhead. The place looked brand new from the highway, like they'd just painted the sign and paved the lot. But up close, the whole area was decaying, covered in desert dust and sand blowing through cracks. I killed the engine, stepped out into the cold night air. The silence was suffocating. No cicadas. No owls. No even the distant howl of a coyote. Just wind and my boots crunching gravel. I started walking toward the restroom building. The doors were hanging open a crack, swinging slightly in the breeze. I grabbed my flashlight from the truck and flicked it on. The beam cut through the dark, revealing walls covered in scratches and dirt. The paint was peeling. Inside was emptier than a tomb. I stepped inside. The air stale and thick. The floorboards creaked underfoot. Then I heard it, a slow, steady tapping like nails on metal, behind me. I whipped around. Nothing. Just the empty parking lot, under a sky full of stars. My breath came out in ragged clouds. Told myself it was just my nerves, just exhaustion. I walked back outside. The truck's CB radio crackled. Static first, then a whisper so faint I almost didn't hear it. "You can't leave." My skin crawled. I dashed back to the rig, slammed the door shut and locked it. Heart hammering, I glanced through the cracked window, and there she was. That shadow woman, standing at the edge of the rest stop. No face, no eyes, no features, just a dark silhouette against the flickering light. She didn't move, just watched. The rig shuddered. The engine coughed. I turned the key again. The tires spun in the gravel. I peeled out of there, kicking up dust and loose stones. But I knew. The desert had marked me. And the rest stop? It wasn't a place you stop to rest. It was a place where people disappear. The desert's silence was louder than ever, and whatever I was chasing, or being chased by, was far from done. By the time I left that cursed rest stop, my nerves were shot, and the cold desert night seemed to crawl inside the cab with me. The rig's heater was blasting full tilt, but the chill in my bones didn't ease one bit. The highway stretched out before me, dark, endless, the only light coming from my rig's headlights and the distant glow of stars overhead. I tried to focus on the road, tried to push the shadow woman out of my head, but the desert's grip wasn't done with me yet. Hours later, I pulled over near mile marker 112, a little spot where the highway straightens and the shoulder widens, just enough to rest without blocking. Traffic. I wasn't planning to stop, just needed to check the load, make sure everything was secure. The palletized machinery parts I was hauling were nothing special, but after the last few hours, every little detail felt off. When I popped the trailer doors open, my stomach dropped. The cargo, it was gone. No pallets. No crates, no machines, just empty, cold metal walls and a floor covered with a thin layer of dust, disturbed only by my boots. My mind reeled. Could I have made a mistake? Had I forgotten to load the truck? I ran my fingers over the walls, trying to shake the creeping feeling of wrongness. The trailer was solid steel, sound as a drum, but inside the air was thick, suffocating. I took out my flashlight and swept the beam around. That's when I saw it. The shadow figure, standing still in the corner where the light barely reached. No face, no eyes, no shape to hold on to. Just a darkness deeper than the desert night outside. My heart slammed against my ribs. I dropped the flashlight. It clattered across the floor, spinning wild beams against the walls. When I grabbed it again, the figure was gone. I tried to steady my breathing, but the cold sweat on my back betrayed me. I slammed the doors shut and locked them tight. I fumbled for the CB radio. "Dispatch. This is Big Rig Hank. Do you copy? Trailer's empty, I repeat. No cargo inside. Only static," answered. No words. No voices. I stared at the rig's dashboard, lights flickering. The heater was blasting, but the chill in the air stayed put, creeping across my skin like icy fingers. Sat back and tried to make sense of it. Was the shadow woman real? Was the cargo real? Or was I losing my mind out here in the desert's grip? Then I remembered something from earlier, the whisper on the radio. "You're already stopped." That wasn't just a warning. It was a message, a promise. The desert didn't just want me to stop driving. It wanted me to stop living. I started the rig again, heart pounding. The highway stretched ahead, dark, empty, and the shadow was waiting. The highway stretched out in front of me like a ribbon of black glass, lit only by the harsh beams of my rig's headlights. The Nevada desert had swallowed the sun hours ago, and the cold was so deep it seemed to freeze the very air inside my cab. My fingers, numb from the chill, gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white. The dash clock was flickering again, playing tricks on me, sometimes speeding up, then slowing down, like time itself didn't want me to keep track. The rig felt heavier. I swear it was like the truck was sinking into the road, getting pulled down by something I couldn't see. I glanced at the side mirror. No reflection, just the black void behind me. That's when I saw it up ahead, the mile marker. Sigh. It was just like the one I'd passed a dozen times before, except the paint was cracked and peeling. The sign was crooked, leaning like it was about to fall over. The desert wind whipped around it, howling like a mournful ghost. And then, movement. The shadow woman was standing just beyond the sign, her silhouette blending with the darkness. But this time she wasn't alone. I could barely make out more figures emerging from the desert night, shapes flickering like mirages, blurred faces, indistinct, watching. Some of them looked like men, some like women, but none of them had clear features, just shadows dancing at the edges of my vision. I eased off the throttle, the rig rolling slower, every muscle in me screaming to run. My CB radio sparked to life, static first, then faint voices, whispering in fragmented phrases. Turn. Back. Don't look. You're not safe. I grabbed the mic, voice trembling. Breaker, this is Big Rig Hank. What's going on out there? Who's with you? No response. Just the eerie chorus of whispers like a crowd of ghosts warning me. You don't belong here. Leave before. It's too late. The rig suddenly shuddered violently. The heater cut out, plunging the cab into icy silence. My hands tightened on the wheel so hard I thought they'd crack. Then she stepped forward, the shadow woman, closer now, reaching out as if to grab me through the windshield. My breath hitched. The world outside seemed to pulse and blur, reality bending. I slammed my foot on the gas. Tires screamed against the asphalt. The cab vibrated violently as the rig tore forward, the figures dissolving into the desert haze. Mile marker 237 disappeared behind me, but its chill stayed locked inside my chest. It wasn't just a sign on the road. It was a threshold, a warning, a place where the desert's darkest secrets come. Alive and the shadow woman? She's not the only one waiting out there. If you think you know what fear is, you haven't driven the Nevada desert alone at night, haunted by a shadow that doesn't want you to leave. By the time I passed mile marker 237, my mind was scrambled. The rig's cab felt colder than a morgue, and every sound, the wind, the engine, even my own breathing, was deafening. The radio had gone silent, and all I could do was keep my eyes on the road and pray. But then the rig started to die again. Lights flickered. The engine stuttered like it was running out of time, and out there, beyond the windshield, the desert seemed to close in. I saw the shadow woman again. Only this time, she was right in the road, standing still, motionless, blocking me. Her face, or what should have been a face, was a void, blacker than the darkest night. I slammed on the brakes. The rig screeched to a halt, tires locking up, heart pounding like a drum. I sat frozen, watching. Then she moved. Not walking, but gliding towards me. I fumbled with the ignition. The engine coughed, then roared to life. I hit the gas and tore down the highway like a man possessed. But the desert wasn't done. The shadow multiplied. Figures appeared on either side of the road, hundreds of them, silent, watching. Their eyes, or where eyes should have been, glowed faintly in the dark. The rig's headlights flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed me whole. I didn't know if I was dreaming, hallucinating, or trapped in some kind of nightmare. But then I heard it, a voice, cold and distant. You belong here now. The rig lurched. I lost control. The truck skidded off the road, flipping over and crashing into the desert sand. I woke up hours later, sun beating down, the rig overturned and silent. No sign of the shadow woman, no other figures, just the endless, empty desert. I don't know how I survived, or if I did, because ever since that night, no matter where I go, I see her, that shadow woman, waiting, watching. So if you ever drive through the Nevada desert at night and you see a shadow on the side of the road, don't stop, don't look back, because the desert takes what it wants and sometimes it lets you go just to haunt the road forever. And that's the story, friend. The desert's secrets aren't just legends, they're real. And the shadow woman, she's waiting for her next ride.